Hi, my name is Sarah Otto, and I'm on the pastoral team at Ignatius House. This passage on the genealogy of Jesus is our entryway into the New Testament. Although the Gospel of Mark was likely the first gospel to be written, the Gospel of Matthew comes first in the New Testament. It serves as an important transition from the Old Testament to the New Testament, as it focuses a lot on issues related to Judaism. As Father Peter reflected last week, in the Holy Family's story of the flight to Egypt, we hear an echo of the Israelites' Exodus story. And so too in today's passage, in the very person of Jesus, we hear an echo of the entire Israelite story, essentially mapped out in this genealogy. The promises, the traditions, the generational sins. We cannot understand Jesus without knowing the whole story. Now, I must admit, I often skim this reading when it comes up in the lectionary, as the number of names can feel boring or tedious. And I hear that a lot from people about the Old Testament in general, which does pain me because I really do love the human story so evident in the ups and downs of Israelite history. But people get confused by the details of some Old Testament books, or are turned off by the violence attributed to God, or quite simply find it boring compared to the stories of Jesus in the New Testament. But today's passage reminds us, you can't have one without the other. This is all one story. This is all part of God's plan. This is the same God made concrete in a human being. We read of Jesus' twofold origin, his historic genealogy, and then in the same chapter, the miraculous story of his conception. As Leonardo Boff writes, what does God mean now? We have to hold the history and the mystery together. The genealogy is broken up into 3 parts that cover 14 generations each. But if you too get lost in the names, Matthew essentially gives us the Cliff's Notes version in the very first verse, highlighting the 2 most important names in the genealogy. The book of the genealogy of Jesus Christ, the son of David, the son of Abraham. By highlighting these 2 names, Matthew emphasizes Jesus' royalty because of the line of David, and reminds us of the Lord's promise to Abraham. Through these 2 names, then, Jesus is pinpointed as the promised King, the promised Messiah, and the generations of hopes that go into that. But while the Cliff's Notes version is helpful, we do miss a lot when we skim the rest of the genealogy. First of all, there are 5 women mentioned in a line of male descendants, which is a remarkable reminder that God works in surprising ways. Some of these women were non-Israelites too, or associated with scandals like David's affair with Bathsheba, an affirmation that God's promises and plan can be enlarged to account for interruptions, human sin, and failure. One of my Old Testament professors in graduate school often talked about the elastic matrix of grace. God's grace is expansive enough to interweave tragedies and mistakes and transform them into a larger plan. Each name in this genealogy has a story of joys and sorrows, of successes and failures. Each name reminds us that God has been using all types of people in the history of salvation. Each name reminds us of the inclusive, expanding nature of God. An inclusivity we see so readily in the person of Jesus as he reaches out to the marginalized and excluded, spends time with the poor, heals the brokenhearted. Today's passage invites each one of us to pray with our own history, our own genealogy, and to see it as a graced history. And there's an invitation to trust that God has come and will continue to come into the messy drama of family life. And we can hold out hope that any interruption can be incorporated into God's loving plan for our life and for the world.